The Vancouver Canucks might already be done with their biggest moves of the year. Or are they? While UFAs like Evander Kane and Teddy Bluger are likely headed out the door for mid-round picks, there is one big fish left in the holster that could completely change the landscape of this roster, and I'm not talking about Elias Pettersson. I'm talking about Conor Garland. He walks the line perfectly between a manageable cap hit and an elite reputation, and right now there is a bidding war that is brewing. We're looking at the 2-week window between the Olympics and the deadline, and today I've got 8 teams ready to pay a massive price to bring Conor Garland home. First up, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are a sleeper team of the deadline. They have a massive estimated over $45 million in cap space and a young core that is finally showing signs of life. So yeah, just about roughly over 45, almost close to almost $46 million in estimated deadline cap space. Let's look at the fit with Columbus. I mean, they are currently playing Danton Heinen, remember that guy, in their top 6. Imagine replacing that with a high motor player like Conor Garland. Definitely more upside with Garland than you would have with Danton Heinen, and it's absolutely a no-brainer. Let's look at the motivation for Columbus to acquire Conor Garland. They're just 4 points out of a playoff spot. Don Waddell is known for being aggressive, and Garland provides that two-way stability that this lacked, dating back to the John Tortorella days, whom, by the way, has the most wins in franchise history as a head coach for the Blue Jackets. We move on to the LA Kings. Of course, this is Anze Kopitar's final season, so you know the LA Kings are all in. They went out and got Artemi Panarin at basically a discount. The Kings cannot waste this. But with Kevin Fiala now out long-term, their scoring depth is absolutely decimated, and they need help on the wing. We went over this in our Evander Kane video, which, by the way, you guys can check out just up at the top right here. But how does Garland fit with the Kings? Garland slots right into that top 9 void. He brings veteran leadership, and that will be vital, especially once Kopitar retires. With the Kings, though, there's a bit of risk. Would Patrick Allvin really trade Garland within his own division? We'd have to see him 4 or 5 times a year. That's a bitter pill to swallow for a return that would need to be massive. Not to mention, the LA Kings have an estimated deadline cap space of over $15 million. We've heard the rumors about Elias Pettersson and how the Kings could basically take on all of PD's contract because of their estimated deadline cap space. But in this video, we're talking about Conor Garland. But moving on to another team, a team that we've spoken about a lot, especially on this channel, the Minnesota Wild. This is the story everyone is watching. They already have Quinn Hughes. The chemistry between Hughes and Garland is legendary. They're close friends, and that matters. We've already been down this road, and as I mentioned, talked about it extensively here on this channel. Now, back then, we mentioned how the Wild may not have the pieces to swing a trade for Garland. As then, we saw Garland as someone who'd fetch a first-round pick. That's likely not the case anymore. I feel as though Garland could definitely fetch you at least a second-round pick, but here's the problem. Minnesota doesn't have their second-round picks both this year and next year. So the only way he probably goes to Minnesota is via a third-round pick, and that may not be enough for the Canucks to be willing to part with. Minnesota has already pushed in most of their chips, but they still have enough to make this work if they view Garland as the final piece. If the Wild can't find a top-tier center, which is what they desperately need right now, Garland is the ultimate consolation prize. He keeps Hughes happy and provides elite secondary scoring for a deep playoff run. But the real question is, would the Canucks be okay with giving up Garland for a measly third-round pick? You tell me. Let me know in the comments down below. Speaking of the Minnesota Wild, they will have an estimated deadline cap space of just over $14 million. So there's that. Now, moving on to the next team, the New York Islanders. The Islanders appear to be retooling around Matthew Shaver, but refusing to tank. Here's the thing, though. They need some veteran presence around a guy like Matthew Shaver. And they're likely going to be losing both Anders Lee and JG Pajot in the very near future, as they could potentially either get traded or retire. Granted, they've got a guy like Bo Horvat who can step into that role and kind of already has, but Garland is the perfect bridge veteran. He fits that quote-unquote Islander identity perfectly: tough, reliable, and hard to play against. They have multiple first-round picks. If the Islanders really want him, they just might have to overpay for him. But that's only if they really want him. Now, if Lou Lamoriello was still running things, he probably would overpay for Garland. But I guess it's a good thing for Islanders fans that Lamoriello ain't the one making those decisions anymore. But at least from a Canucks perspective, they could get a first-round pick, and the Islanders can offer them that. But would the Islanders really be willing to give up a first-round pick for a third-line winger? That is the big question. Next up, we have the Ottawa Senators. Now, the Senators are 6 points out and desperate to prove this core can win. They are heavy down the middle, but thin on the wings. So how does Garland fit on the Senators? Garland matches the temperament of Brady Tkachuk. He brings a level of pest-like energy and skill that would instantly push Nick Cousins or Mike Amadio down the lineup, making Ottawa much harder to match up against. But what could Ottawa offer the Canucks in return? The Senators do have both their 2026 and 2027 second-round picks, but would they be willing to pay that price for someone like Garland? They also have 3 third-round picks in this year's draft as well. Could that maybe entice the Canucks? Not to mention, they're going to have an estimated just under $14 million in cap space around the deadline to work with as well, as you can see from here. So yeah, just under $14 million. And I completely forgot to share the New York Islanders one. They have just a little over $6 million in cap space. But moving on to the next team, which is the Philadelphia Flyers. Now this is all about the Rick Tocchet connection. We know Garland played his best hockey under Rick Tocchet, and we also know Tocchet absolutely loves Conor Garland. But would Garland fit with the Flyers? If Tocchet is a long-term answer in Philly, I know, I've seen the rumors and reports how Flyers fans aren't happy with Tocchet. He needs his quote-unquote guys to show Matvei Michkov how to play the quote-unquote right way. Garland is the ultimate teacher in that regard. Now this comes with some risks. The Flyers are far out of the hunt, but if they want to build a culture for next season, they might strike early, and Garland would definitely help build that culture, and he's locked up long-term too. Plus, Flyers have an estimated deadline cap space of over $32 million, which is something they could play around with, as you guys can see right here. Yeah, just a little over $32 million in estimated, and keep in mind this is all estimated deadline cap space. Next up, we have the Utah Mammoth. Utah has a quote-unquote blank check and a young, fast roster. They need to supplement their talent with proven winners. So how does Garland fit with the Utah Mammoth? Where does Garland fit on the roster and in the lineup? Garland is a clear upgrade over Michael Carcone or Kyler Yamamoto. However, Utah is already quote-unquote small on the wings with Clayton Keller. Does Garland make them too easy to push around, or does his grit negate his size? Also, what would Utah have to give up for Garland? We mentioned how the Senators have 3 third-round picks. Could they be able to... mentioned how the Senators have 3 third-round picks. Well, Utah, they have 3 second-round picks. Could they be able to entice the Canucks with one of those picks? We know the Canucks are all about draft capital right now, not to mention the Mammoth will have an estimated almost $30 million in deadline cap space. Yeah, just under $30 million, or just over $29 million, sorry. Next up, we have the Boston Bruins. Now, the Bruins have been linked to Garland for years now. He's a Bruins-style player through and through, and not to mention, he's from the Massachusetts area too. I know us Canuck fans would absolutely hate the idea of Garland going to the Bruins. I know I'd hate it, but here's the thing. They're the only team on this list that would need to move money out in order to acquire Conor Garland. They'd need to move potentially Casey Middlestad to make it work, as they're only estimated to be playing around with just over $5 million in cap space, which is the lowest out of the bunch. As you can see there, yeah, just a little over $5 million in estimated cap space. But Garland playing alongside David Pastrnak or a young Fraser Minton would be an absolute nightmare for the Atlantic Division in the playoffs. Now, the clock is ticking toward the March 9th trade deadline, and the pressure is on Patrick Allvin is reaching a boiling point. We've looked at 8 teams and 1 Conor Garland, but the question remains, who wins the trade deadline sweepstakes? Between the massive cap space in Columbus, the desperation in LA, and the emotional reunion waiting in Minnesota, we are looking at an absolute bidding war, as we mentioned, for one of the most reliable two-way players in the league. Because if they don't end up moving Garland, they run into yet another no-movement clause scenario. And we're already dealing with plenty of those as it is, and we don't need to deal with another one. I want to hear from you guys, though. Does Vancouver take the package from a division rival like the Kings, or do they send it back east to a team like the Bruins or maybe even the Senators? Let me know in the comments which team you think is the front runner to win the Conor Garland sweepstakes and this bidding war. I'd like to close off this video by thanking the sponsors of this video, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that artwork you see. You guys can check them out yourselves at GassyJackArt.com. And also, I'd like to thank my other sponsor, none other than DraftKings Sportsbook, which is an official sports betting partner of the NHL.
Need parts fast? O'Reilly Auto Parts has fast. Need them now? We've got now. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. We're O'Reilly Fast. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player props and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN, that's code THPN, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois, 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario, restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which will expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. This is a limited time offer. Copyright 2026 NHL, all rights reserved. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to The Line Change for more daily coverage as we count down towards the trade deadline on March 9th. The Line Change, a Vancouver Canucks podcast, is proudly a member of the Hockey Podcast Network. Be sure to check out the network for your favorite podcast covering your favorite team at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com, the home of hockey podcasts, where it's every team, everywhere. Once again, drop your comments down below. Thanks for tuning in. and I'll catch you guys on the next line change.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.